The Republic of Türkiye is a country in the westernmost portion of Asia, which is also a little bit in southeastern Europe. Its capital city is Ankara, and its largest city is Istanbul, which is considered one of the most significant cities in the history of mankind. Türkiye's population is 85,279,553 and is home to ethnic groups all across the board. Within its 783,562 square kilometers of land area lies a unique people and culture characterized by its warmth, togetherness, unparalleled cuisine, history, music, dance, natural wonders, and so on. Today, this nation sees its 100th year of existence. Within its borders, it bears a story nearly unlike that of any other. So, what better way to celebrate this nation than to learn about it and what it has to offer? Our story begins with the Ottoman Empire's involvement in World War I. A nation, once the mightiest in its region, was now on the losing side of the largest and deadliest war in human history at the time. Damn. We're losing men on all fronts. There's no way we're going to be able to take the English. Men, you two are among the greatest military minds this empire has ever seen. It is your responsibility to find an end to this madness.
Instead of putting these divisions here, maybe we shall move them over to this side and brush them out over there.
That might just work. Excuse me. I have to see this for myself. Yes, that makes perfect sense. By God, you've just about single-handedly won this battle. You're brilliant! But despite the losses, on the 19th of February 1915, an attempt was made by the British and French to whack the Ottomans from their west by invading the Gallipoli Peninsula, otherwise known as the Dardanelles. With the help of the legendary Mustafa Kemal Pasha, the Turks roared back. The British are just on the other side of this hill. Come on, man, move it! In fact, the Turks fought so well and ethically that the Australians began to recognize Mustafa Kemal Pasha as an excellent military commander despite the rivalry.
We don't know how you did it, but you're really something out there. Might should be the best opponent we've ever seen.
The Ottomans, such as their German, Austrian, and Bulgarian counterparts, were eventually defeated by the Allied powers. On the 31st of October 1918, the Ottomans signed an armistice which ended fighting between them and the Allies. Just a day prior, on the 30th of October, the Allies had begun partitioning the Ottoman Empire. As a result of this, the Turkish people were about to be left without a homeland, so on the 19th of May 1919, Mustafa Kemal Pasha, who knew the Allies were going to cut up his land, mobilized an army and landed in the city of Samsun in northern Anatolia with his men, starting the Turkish War for Independence. The Turkish people deserve to live in a land they call their own, so it's homeland or death, men, and we're about to take back what's rightfully ours. But who is Mustafa Kemal Pasha? He was born, well, his exact date of birth is disputed among historians, but it is widely accepted as the 19th of May, 1881. He said so. He was born Mustafa, no surname because that didn't exist yet, to father Ali Rıza Efendi and mother Zübeyde Hanım in Selanik, Ottoman Empire, which is now Thessaloniki, Greece. He was the only surviving child they had. He attended a religious school, which was typical for the time, then a general elementary school. Once out of elementary school, he attended a military junior high. In 1899, he enrolled in the Ottoman War Academy in Istanbul, and in 1902, he enrolled in the Imperial Military Staff College in what is now North Macedonia. He officially joined the Ottoman military in 1905, rising through the ranks and participating in wars such as the Italo-Turkish War, the First Balkan War, and World War I. In 1915, he found himself at the forefront in the battle against the Allies and surprised them because he did exceptionally well, because they thought he was just another dude. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom at the time, David Lloyd George, even said this, quote, "We meet genius people very rarely in centuries. It is so unlucky that, in this century, that great genius person belongs to the Turkish nation. The centuries rarely produce a genius. Look at this bad luck of ours. That great genius of our era was granted to the Turkish nation." Unquote. After World War I ended, the Ottomans did everything they could to put him in a passive role and have him hanged, because they weren't going to be able to sustain their wealth and prestige if he intervened in kicking out the Allies, which is what he was looking to do. Mustafa Kemal wanted to give a nation for the Turkish people and not have them merely exist in someone else's territory. He didn't want them to become a minority in their own land and wanted them to have their own unique Turkish identities. The Turks had already been in Anatolia for 850 to 900 years in the 20th century, and he was set to reclaim the land that was about to be lost. Nearly 2 years later, on the 10th of August 1920, another treaty was signed between the Ottomans and the Allies known as the Treaty of Sèvres. This treaty officially ceded large portions of Anatolia to France, the UK, Greece, and Italy, rendering the entire empire into a small region bordering the Black Sea. As mentioned earlier, Mustafa Kemal Pasha would not have this, which is why he started the War for Independence. On the 30th of August 1922, after about 3.5 years of fighting, the Turks won their independence war and secured their hold on their own nation. On the 24th of July 1923, the Treaty of Lausanne granted what was to become Turkey international recognition, and on the 29th of October, Mustafa Kemal Pasha proclaimed the Republic of Türkiye. He was elected unanimously as the nation's first president. The Republican People's Party, Mustafa Kemal Pasha's political party and Turkiye's founding party, became the nation's ruling party until the first multi-party elections in 1945. The following years in office, he transformed Turkish society by enacting a series of reforms which made what was an empire ruled by religious doctrine into a liberalized secular democracy. The Caliphate and Sharia law were abolished. The old Arabic script the Ottomans used was replaced with a Latin one. In fact, Mustafa Kemal Pasha is responsible for creating the Turkish language as we know it today. He banned garments relating to religion, most notably the fez, and granted women a wider range of opportunities and the right to vote. Between 1920 and 1938, 10% of all Turkish university graduates were women. He enacted 2 5-year plans and gave everyone a surname, moved the capital from Istanbul to Ankara, enacted a new civil code, and so on and so on and so on. So not only did this man want a nation for his people, he wanted his people treated right as well. In 1934, he was named Atatürk, meaning Father of the Turks. The great leader passed away in his official residence in Istanbul on the 10th of November 1938 at 9:05 a.m. local time. His death sent shockwaves throughout the world. Thousands of citizens and foreign state officials attended his funeral. His body remained at the Ethnography Museum of Ankara until 1953, when it was transferred to Anıtkabir, his mausoleum, where he still is to this day. In September 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland and World War II broke out in Europe. Turkey declared neutrality on the 26th of June 1940, and it wasn't until late February 1945 when it declared war on Germany. But nothing came of that. 3 months before war broke out, and after an agreement with the French, what is today the Hatay province was ceded to Turkey. After the war, as Europe was trying to rebuild, signs of an ideological division between Western and Soviet ideas were showing. On the 18th of February 1952, Turkey joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO for short.
Thanks for joining the team. Got plenty of Reds out there to be taken care of.
On the 27th of May 1960, Turkey witnessed its first coup, and the military took over and started purging people. The next time free elections were held was in 1965. Meanwhile, south of Turkey, on the island of Cyprus, tensions between the Turkish and Greek populations began to violently escalate. The Turks felt underrepresented, and because of the far-right military coup which happened in Greece in 1967, people feared Cyprus would unite with Greece. While all of this was unfolding, law student and Marxist-Leninist revolutionary Deniz Gezmiş and his comrades spread the word of socialism, establishing organizations within Istanbul University, which is where he was studying, such as the Revolutionary Student Union and the Revolutionary Jurists Organization. He also co-founded the People's Liberation Army of Turkey and was a member of the country's Workers' Party. After a whole mess with U.S. overseas soldiers, he and his comrades were arrested in 1968, and he was executed by hanging in 1972. Going back to Cyprus, Turkey wouldn't have this, so on the 20th of July 1974, they militarily intervened. In 1975, a Turkish nation within Cyprus was created, and it gained independence in 1983. It still exists to this day. On the 12th of September 1980, there was another coup. This one was characterized by the seizure of power by a junta and the enactment of martial law until 1983, along with political repression. On the 17th of August 1999, a devastating magnitude 7.6 earthquake hit outside of Istanbul, causing about 18,000 deaths, 48,000 injuries, and $3 to $8.5 billion in damage. Leading up to 2002, a series of economic shocks landed the Justice and Development Party, a significantly more right-leaning political party, into power. In 2003, there was an alleged coup planned out by secularists to take down this new conservative government, which posed a threat to the nation's secular and liberal values. This was known as Operation Sledgehammer, and numerous arrests were made. In 2013, the Turkish government wanted to build some buildings over a community park in Istanbul, a city which doesn't have that many parks anyway, known as Gezi Parkı. On the 27th of May, a sit-in protesting the plan triggered strikes and protests across the nation, and soon the entire country was on fire. Huge, massive, anti-government protests, numerous arrests, and casualties followed. The movement gained international recognition, and protests reached beyond Turkey's borders. Beginning in 2008 and ending in 2016, there were a series of trials in which 275 people, including journalists, opposition lawmakers, and military officers, were all accused of allegedly being part of another secular plot against the government, and were all allegedly part of an organization known as Ergenekon. Numerous people accused were sentenced to lengthy time in prison. In February 2023, two back-to-back magnitude 7 earthquakes, specifically 7.7 and 7.8, the first of its kind in the 21st century, annihilated southeastern Turkey and parts of northern Syria. Entire cities were reduced to dust and rubble. For Turkey, 50,783 deaths were suffered, there were 107,204 injuries, 297 went missing, and there was around $118.8 billion in damage. Humanitarian efforts from all over the world stepped in, and Turkey has never forgotten that. Later in that same year, the Turkish national women's volleyball team were making a name for themselves, defeating every team they played against one after the other. In September 2023, it was announced they were heading to the 2024 Olympics in Paris. They were ranked as the #1 women's volleyball team in the world. And on the 29th of October 2023, the Republic of Türkiye celebrated its 100th anniversary, which is where our story concludes. It's not too often you see a nation with such cultural, linguistic, historic uniqueness, which was forged from dust and war by one man who single-handedly transformed it from a decaying empire into one of the brightest beacons of equality, democracy, and people's unity in the world. Today, we celebrate the product of the greatest success story ever told.